Seekers, I'm Nick. This is the last B660 board that we're going to check out for a while, but I did want to share this with you. But before that, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on that little bell to receive notifications so you can see videos like this pop up in your sub feed. Today, we're going to take a bit of a look at the ASUS ROG STRIX B660-A Gaming Wi-Fi D4. It's an absolute mouthful, but this is an ASUS B660 board that has DDR4. But as usual with our motherboard content, these videos are not reviews. They're just overviews so we can take a bit of a closer look at everything on these new boards and everything that comes in the box of the brand new board. And then I'll tell you what I think about this thing. Not a review. Let's get into it. All right, ladies and gents, here it is, the ROG STRIX B660-A Gaming Wi-Fi D4 from ASUS. But let's do the usual thing. Let's get the motherboard out of the way so we can take a bit of a closer look at all of the things that come in the box. First up, we've got the Wi-Fi antenna for the built-in Wi-Fi 6 and the Bluetooth. There's also a set of SATA or SATA cables for your 2.5-inch SSDs or your spinning ROS drives. There's this is a keyring, it's an ROG keyring. You may or may not be into this, but you know, it's completely up to you. There's also some M.2 clips, spare ones for the 3 M.2 slots on this board. There's a bunch of zip ties for cable management. I like when motherboards include this kind of stuff. There's the user guide. This will help you figure out what everything is on the board, where everything is on the board, and how to configure some simple BIOS stuff. There's also this round circular plastic device that is basically going to get thrown in the bin and is terrible for the environment. There's also this here. This is a sheet of stickers. People love these for some reason. I'm not personally into it, but if you like it, you like what you like. There's also a motherboard layout guide, and this basically just shows you where everything is on the board at a glance, just nice and quickly. And lastly is this: get ready to rock the gaming world with ROG STRIX. As a member of, you can read this. Just pause it if you want to read it. Okay. Let's unsheath the B660-A Gaming Wi-Fi D4 and take a little bit of a closer look at everything that is on this board. You guys ready? I'm ready. Let's take a look. First up, we've got the front panel audio header. There's a SPDIF header as well, because this board doesn't have SPDIF on the back. There's a Thunderbolt header. There's a 3-pin 5V addressable RGB header, a 4-pin 12V RGB header, a USB 2.0 header, an additional USB 2.0 header, but it's not a full-size one. There's also 2 PWM fan headers. There's 2 SATA ports for your 2.5-inch SSDs or your spinning ROS drives, and also the front panel header for all your lights and all your switches to let you know your system's up. On the edge of the board, there's 2 more SATA or SATA ports for your 2.5-inch SSDs or your spinning ROS drives, a USB 3.2 front panel header, a USB Type-C front panel header, a 24-pin power connector to send juice to your brand new board, and an LED array to help you diagnose your system for posting. There's 2 more 3-pin 5V addressable RGB headers. There's 2 more PWM fan headers along the top edge of the board. If we scoot on over, there is an 8-pin EPS power connector and a supplemental 4-pin EPS power connector as well. There's 2 more PWM fan connectors that appear above the top M.2 slot, and I thought I'd mention this just in case you're wondering why there wasn't more fan headers. In terms of PCIe slots, so you've got a PCIe Gen 5 slot, which is the one with the silver shroud on it. There's 2x1 PCIe Gen 3 slots, and the slot at the bottom is another PCIe Gen 3 slot, but it's a by 16 size slot, but it's actually wired for by 4. The B660-A Gaming Wi-Fi D4 features a 12+1 phase digital VRM setup, and as you can see, as with most of these boards, the heatsink basically covers the whole I/O cover here, which is becoming a trend that we've seen with boards over the last few years. And there's also another really massive heatsink on the top of the board too. Whether or not this is going to impact air cooling, we're going to find out a little bit later. We're going to do a video where we're going to take a look at some air cooling solutions for these new boards. Let's pop open the slot if you've never seen it before. This is Intel's brand new LGA 1700 socket and supports 12th gen Intel CPU, so all the way from the i3 up to the i9. And there's actually around about 1800 contact pins here, not just 1700, so you know, for future expansion. If we flip the board over, you can see that there's not much going on back here. Pretty standard for an ASUS board. As for RAM compatibility though, it supports up to 128 gigs of DDR4 memory at 5333 megatransfers overclocked. Let's rip the heatsinks off to take a bit of a look at the M.2 slots on this board. This board has a total of 3 M.2 slots. Now this top slot here is wired directly into the CPU for full PCIe Gen 4 connectivity if you're using one of those drives. However, the bottom 2 M.2 slots are wired into the chipset and also provide full PCIe Gen 4 connectivity as well. And as with most ASUS boards that we've seen for Z690 and B660, you also have these plastic latches to attach the drive, so you don't need to use any screws whatsoever. In terms of reconnectivity, we've got DisplayPort, HDMI, some USB 2.0 ports, a BIOS flashback button, 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, USB 3.2, there's also USB Type-C there, there's some more USB 3.2, there's the Wi-Fi 6 antenna connectors, we've got the audio interface that supports 5.1 audio, and also an additional USB Type-C connector that has isolation, so if you're using an audio interface, you can get a really clean signal. Alright ladies and gents, hope you enjoyed this first look and overview of the ASUS ROG STRIX B660-A Gaming Wi-Fi D4. Now, this board is a little bit of an interesting one in the sense that a lot of the B660 stuff that we've seen so far from ASUS in the, let's call it the affordable price bracket, has been DDR5 only. So this one being DDR4 is a little bit of an outlier. Now, the reason why I was mainly interested in this board was less about performance and less about what the board can do in the feature set and more about the aesthetics of the board, because it's got this white cover on it and it's got silver heatsink. So if we were to do some B660 builds, some more budget friendly, I'm gonna say budget, I'm gonna use that word really loosely, but for the more budget stuff that we wanna do, we can do budget white builds with this. So I'm looking at doing a 12400 video and a 12100F video with this and seeing how much we can bring the price down. Now there are much cheaper B660 boards, but this one does have stuff that people ask us quite a lot about, which is mainly Wi-Fi. You'd be surprised, like we get lots of comments from people asking about Wi-Fi. And I know I said that the feature set didn't really matter, and it was more about aesthetics, but Wi-Fi I think is pretty important these days. A lot of people don't want to run Ethernet cables through their house. I don't blame you. I actually don't blame you. And having stuff like Wi-Fi 6 on these boards actually, you know, negates the need for that if you've got a compatible access point that can actually do Wi-Fi 6, which is, you know, still happening. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I think the board is pretty well executed. It does have a couple things that we find on the TUF series of boards. Stuff like finding SATA ports along the bottom here and these, you know, two separated SATA ports so they're not in a group together. And that's pretty typical of the cheaper boards that we see from all board manufacturers, not just ASUS. Which leads me into the next thing, the pricing of the B660-A Gaming Wi-Fi D4 from ASUS. If you're looking at grabbing this board in the US, you're looking at about $239 US or around 369 Aussie dollars at the time of filming this video. As always, that's always subject to change and all that jazz. You know how it is with the market. It could go up, could go down. Nobody knows. We don't have crystal balls. And even if I did have a crystal ball, I don't know how to read them like a clairvoyant person. That's funny, that word, hey, clairvoyant. Clairvoyant, ooh. Oh, that's your new name. That should be your like in-game name, clairvoyant.
No, thank you.
with a K. Okay, I'm gonna sidetrack a bit, right? We've talked about the motherboard and the pricing and everything, but here's a bit of a sidetrack. The keen-eyed out there may have noticed that I'm standing up in the studio and I've got a desk here and I'm talking. That is thanks to Omnidesk. If you wanna grab yourself an Omnidesk, there's a link in the description where you can get a discount. It's Australia only. Use code GearSeekers at the checkout to get yourself a little bitty discount on the Omnidesk website. So yeah, check out the description for info on that. This is the new, like, Nick, I'm talking to the camera guy standing setup. But we actually have a whole video talking about all of our studio upgrades. Yes, it's not just the desk. We've done a lot of upgrades over the last few days, but that's gonna be coming out later in the week because I still need to edit it because it's quite a big video. Anyways, guys, if you like this video, you know what to do. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, get subscribed if you're not subscribed for more motherboard overviews because you guys told us that you want to see them here on GearSeekers and not on MainBite. I've heard you loud and clear. They're staying right here for now. And if you like the music you heard here, I make all the music. It's available by clicking that join button down below or heading over to Patreon or Floatplane. Get early access. You guys know how this works already. Once again, thank you so very much for watching. I'm your boy Nick with GearSeekers. You peak, we seek. And ladies and gents, we're going to do some builds this week. I know it's been a couple weeks since we built some PCs and I know you're missing them. I'm also missing some builds. So because I want to give you guys exactly what you want in life, we're gonna do some awesome builds this week. Thanks for watching.